In class then we've been looking at writing our rap lyrics and how to use rhyme and slang to create those ready for your performances. But to go with your actual rapping in the performance, we're going to be creating a backing track for you to rap along with. And to do this, we're going to be using GarageBand. So the first thing we need to do is open up our GarageBand software. So most of you should have GarageBand sitting in your dock in the bottom of your computer, and you should just be able to click on it from there and it will load straight up. If you don't have GarageBand sitting in your dock at the bottom of the computer, if you go to the magnifying glass symbol in this top right hand corner of your screen and click on that, it will bring up this search box. Then you can type in GarageBand using your keyboard and it will be the first one that comes up in the list, or you can just press enter and it will open up the software for you that way. So now that the program is open, we need to make sure we're starting a new project and make sure that piano is selected before you click choose at the bottom here. So now we're coming to the save screen. You need to make sure that you're giving your song a name so that you know what you're looking for when we open it up in following lessons. So I'm going to call mine hip hop so I know what it is that I am creating, and then make sure that it is in your documents either here on this drop down menu or on these longer list menus if they are in view for you, and then click create at the bottom of the screen. So now you've opened up a new fresh GarageBand project and you have one track available ready for you to start working with and recording on. Now the best place to start with any rap or hip hop backing track is always with the drum beat. So we need to change this instrument so that it is on a drum kit ready for us to be starting on those beats now. So if we go to our instrument list down the side here and change to drum kits on the first list, any of these drum kits now in this list you could use to help you create this beat. So it's up to you. Have a little listen and a try out of some of the sounds on the different kits, see which ones you like before you pick. I'm going to pick the hip hop kit, and then I can press this little I button in the bottom corner and that window will disappear. We don't need that one anymore. So you can see that the track has now changed to the hip hop kit and it is all ready for us to get started creating our beat. So the first thing we need to do is make a little piece of track that we can edit and manipulate so that we can create our beat. So how we do that is we hold down the command button on our computer keyboard, and can you see my mouse pointer is now changed to a little pencil symbol. So anywhere now on this track that we have added, I can click and it will bring up one of these little green editable boxes that we can add different instrument sounds or different notes to. So I'm going to drag it back to the beginning to make sure it starts on our first beat of the bar, and you'll notice that it is one whole bar in length, so you've got 4 beats that you can record, and then after we've recorded in these parts we can always loop or copy and paste our beat so that it lasts for longer. So to add our beat and start creating our sounds, we need to double click on this little green box that we've just added in, and this edit window will appear at the bottom of your GarageBand. So this is where we can now add in some notes to create our beat. You'll notice that there is a piano keyboard here down the side, so this is exactly the same as your piano keyboard on your keyboards that are underneath your computers. And if you click on any of these notes, it will play the sound associated with that letter to you. So I know on this particular drum kit that we've selected that C1, so if I scroll down, is the bass drum sound. So here you can see it has the little C1 written on the note, and if I click on it, you will hear the bass drum sound. Now bass drum is really important in a lot of backing tracks because it will help keep the pulse and the speed of the music really obvious for you to rap along to. So we need to look then at adding in notes on this line here across in our green box so that we are adding in the correct sound, our bass drum sound. And to do this, you can click anywhere on that line inside these green box lines. But you have to hold down the command button on your keyboard first. So we've got that little pencil symbol cropping up again, and now if I click it will add in a note. So I'm going to drag this one note so that it starts on the very first beat of the bar, and then I'm going to add a second bass drum note further on into the bar, and I'm going to drag that one so that it starts in the middle of the third beat. So this is beat 1, beat 2, This one's beat 3 here, and this one is the 4th beat of the bar. So I'm in the middle of the 3rd beat. And we can now have a little listen to that if we want to see what it sounds like. So it's a slightly syncopated, we call it, beat that I've created, which means that our first beat here is directly on the beat of the bar in time, and this one is slightly off beat, so instead of being on the number 3 or on the number 4, it's in between the two. So it's a slightly syncopated beat. It gives a little bit more interest than if I just had it on beat 1 and beat 3, which would sound like this. So feel free when you're adding these bass drum notes in to add more than just the 2 that I have added. So you can add as many bass drum sounds as you want. You can also make these notes longer and shorter. So if I go to the end of my note that I've just added, you'll see this symbol appear with a line in the middle and 2 arrows either side. If I now click and drag, I can make my note shorter or longer, however short or long I would like. And I can add that into my drum beat. So for example, this one would now sound like this. I actually like that better than my original beat, so I'm going to keep that note in there now. But feel free to add as many of these bass drum sounds as you want, and to change the positioning and keep listening to your beat as you go along to make sure that you're happy with how it sounds. The next sound on the drum kit that we're going to add into our beat is the snare drum, which I know is on the E here above my C1. So C, D, E, this one here. So again, I'm going to use the command button to add in these notes, and it's very typical in a lot of pop, rock, rap music, all sorts of types of music, that the snare drum happens on the 2nd and the 4th beat of every bar. So I'm going to add in my snare drum part on the 2nd and the 4th beat of the bar. And now we can have a little listen again to this. So I've got my snare and my bass drums alternating with each other so that they're not all happening at the same time. And again, with this you can make your notes shorter and longer, or you can add extra snare drums in if you would like. So remember to keep listening back to what you are creating so that you are happy with what you're adding in. The next part I'm going to add is a cymbal sound. So this will add more variety because we've got 2 drum beat sounds. Some cymbals will add a different tone to your drum beat. And I know that generally on most of our kits, the cymbal sounds and other sounds that are similar, like the hand claps, are always on the black keys of your piano keyboard here. So your hand clap sound on this drum kit is here, and then there are different cymbal sounds on some of the other black notes like this. So I'm going to focus on this black note and this cymbal sound because this is what we call a closed hi-hat, which is very common in this style of music, so it's very appropriate for this kind of drum beat. And again, I'm going to add in my notes using my command button so that it changes to my little pencil symbol, and then clicking with my mouse. And I'm going to make sure that these hi-hat sounds are a lot shorter and more frequent in my drum beat than my drum sounds, which I've just added. So I've added 2 little cymbal sounds in this first beat of the bar. If I now click and drag, I can highlight both of these beats that I've just added together. And if I press my Alt button on the keyboard, I can click and drag and duplicate these notes for beats 2 and beats 3 as well, without having to add each note individually and drag it smaller again. And then slightly differently, in the 4th beat, I'm going to add a few more of these hi-hat cymbals to add a little bit of variety to my drum beat. So I'm going to add one on every single one of my 4 little boxes for beat 4. So I just selected one of the notes and held down Alt to copy it that time. And we'll have another little listen. So I've now got my 2 different drum sounds and my hi-hat added in to my drum beat. So this is a very basic beat that we've started off with to give you an idea of what you can do. But as I say, feel free to experiment with the different sounds and the different rhythms that you are creating in your little green box for your beat. So there are other drum sounds that you can experiment with using. For example, these two. They are the toms on the drum kit, so they are slightly higher pitched drums than the bass drum and the snare that you've already been using. Remember, you've got the other cymbal sounds, we've got the hand claps, and there are even more sounds if you scroll up further on your drum kit. So think about what is appropriate for your rap and what kind of style you are looking for in your beat, and have an experiment with all of the different sounds that are available to you until you are happy with your initial little cell of drum beat. Okay? Once you are happy with your first little bit of the beat, you can copy and paste it, or you can loop it to extend it. So if I go up to the top right hand corner of my track that I've added, this little circular arrow symbol will appear, and if I click and drag, that will copy in a loop exactly what we created in these first 4 beats for as long or as short as you want it to. If, however, you want to copy your beat but leave some gaps for other things to be happening in your piece, maybe you want to create 2 different beats and swap between them, then you need to copy and paste this track instead of looping it. So you need to click on it so it goes this dark green colour, hold down the command button on your keyboard and then press the C letter on your keyboard as well. That will copy this section of track that you've created and selected, and then you move your red line with your little arrow at the top to wherever you want to paste your track to, and then you hold down the command button again and press the V letter on your keyboard to paste it where your red line was. So obviously if I forget to move my red line, or if I paste it in the wrong place and I want to move it, you know that you can click and drag to move it afterwards as well, in case you've put it in the wrong place. And that's how we would leave gaps in our beat. So this is your basic beat. Hopefully you've created one that sounds a bit different to mine and fits with the style that you are trying to create for your rap. And then in the next video we'll talk about adding extras to this beat to build it up into a more interesting and more varied backing track to go along with your rap.